First, the Mamma Mia of all Mamma Mias.
Here I go again.
Oh, my.
How can I resist you, Mamma Mia?
We call her the great Mamma Mia because she is the president for Parents for Truth in Education. She is Julie West. Julie, good morning.
Hello, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, I loved, one of the things I saw you kind of post in exchange, and that is that, virtually everything we're talking about, whether or not people with penises can take showers with girls in schools, regardless of what they think they are, whether it's textbooks, whether it's indoctrination, whether it's being bought. I mean, we're constantly saying they're all symptoms, aren't they? Symptoms of a much bigger problem, and we just don't spend enough time talking about the real cancer.
Absolutely. Every time one of these mandates comes out, we start running around, and I just mean generally everyone who's paying attention, in sort of a Chicken Little mode, saying the sky is falling and acting surprised. The reality is, you and I, a year ago, were talking about how, hey, if they take these federal grants, guess what? In no time at all, you are required to have boys and girls showering together and that sort of thing. And, of course, school boards went ahead, kept taking the money. And what we need to wrap our brains around is really Arnie Duncan, this Department of Education, and all those associated with it, down to the state level, really are equivalent to an American Robespierre, who Robespierre hated Christians so much that he did anything he could.
Wait a minute, time out. Not faith, not beliefs, because they have no problem with atheists who have clear beliefs and no beliefs. They have no problems with Islam. They have no problem with Buddhism. They have no problem with life. But if it's Christian, it's always the target. These are crimes of Christian faith, and they are all the symptoms of a nation that first and foremost abandoned absolute truth, abandoned a God, his way, his truth, and his life in favor of an academia, intelligentsia, moral relativist, spiritual pluralistic theory. And so it's pure political correctness over truth, number one. It's also federal buy-in, federal takeover, and all of their money comes with attachments. Now, by the way, on this indoctrination, I think clearly one of the things that kind of shocks us, well, not at all, are the ties to Common Core. So, I can assure you that all these are either federal agendas by way of political correctness or crimes of faith, Christian faith, and that's all it is. And by the way, we're just getting started.
And by the way, Michael, let's be clear. Common Core is less about a set of standards than it is about a shift in the way education is handled and our children are taught to think.
And moral conditioning. Moral conditioning would be probably the...
Absolutely. So, when you're looking at the 7th grade or Islam or gender or marriage or issues of life or locker rooms, that they all go directly at the morality, the modesty, the belief in absolute right and wrong that are requisite in a Judeo-Christian society.
Let me ask it to you this way, and that is, just as the government, do you realize if we would go back to 2008 spending levels, we would have a $500 billion surplus. But everybody, whether they're Republican or Democrat, whether they're president, a senator, or a representative, will tell you, we can't go back to 2008 spending levels. Meanwhile, I'm spending at 2008 levels. I know you are. And everybody I know is spending at 2008 levels. But the government, it can't. Which shows you just how radical what we have done with entitlement programs. But let me ask you this. Could we ever get back to just normal standards of reading, writing, arithmetic, geography, civics, history, preparing children for higher education in the workforce? Is it even possible to go just forget all this social engineering and religious persecution and yada, 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 indoctrination, conditioning, and just get back to education? Is that impossible to do?
Well, it would take an act of God at this point, but I would say maybe the first step to moving in that direction, to moving back towards educating rather than indoctrinating our children.
Is removing the federal government from the process.
Is for these school boards to quit taking every federal dollar that comes down the line, because the purpose of those federal grants is to move your children away from local control, away from state authority, and move them under the federal government. You know, it wasn't long ago that we were joking about the fact that as the quality of lunches has dramatically decreased, the profits being turned by school cafeterias under these federal programs was skyrocketing. I mean, schools making, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars off of the cafeteria, which is just kind of sick. But even in that, even with that reality in place, we still have local school boards and even good conservative folks on them saying, oh, well, there's another federal grant, and somebody will say, well, what does this obligate us to? And a superintendent will say, well, you know, they all come with strings, but nothing that serious. And then it's a unanimous vote to take another.
And then next thing you know, old Harry Hung is showering next to my daughter. Julie West is joining us, Parents for Truth and Education. I had a good laugh. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I had a good laugh. I don't know Bobby. Is it Hullett or Hewlett?
Hullett.
All right, I don't know Bobby Hullett from Adam. And like everybody in Williamson County, of course, they're my brother. They're all Christians, of course. You know, I don't know any of that nonsense. But I love the fact that he thinks, based on a post on Facebook, that his life was threatened. Everybody plasters that story, and then nobody ever does the follow-up story when the police investigate and said, that's not a threat. In fact, by the way, what I loved about it was, that's my Tuesday. You know,
right.
There's not a week that goes by that people aren't calling for me to be fired, thrown out of the state, killed, destroyed, you know, and then I get real death threats to boot. So obviously, Mr. Hullett and his thin skin, you know, went to the police in his attempt to try to get political justice, like political correctness justice. He thinks anybody that disagrees with him is trying to kill him. And the police set him straight. That is not, nobody was threatening your life. So, you know, just what a moron. But anyway, moving on. Where do we stand on all this indoctrination stuff? And
well, and can I add something on to that story with Bobby Hullett? I spent the weekend at a meeting of conservative leaders from across the state, and there was one pattern that we found very interesting. That wherever you had school boards or individuals in a community beginning to push back against some of the Islamic content or some of the liberal content in the school district, you would have a left-leaning member of the school board all of a sudden claim that they were getting death threats. And either no police report would ever be filed, or when the police came and said, well, what is your evidence? 100% of the time, you'd have the school board member saying, I'm getting death threats, and the police would look at it and go, no, you're not. and then you have groups like CARE stepping forward and demanding an official investigation. Well, the police have looked at it and said, the report.
They want to investigate it. Well, because it's a narrative, and it doesn't matter if there's no evidence. It doesn't matter if the police don't find any evidence. You know, and by the way, what's more frustrating even than that, I mean, I just laugh at that. I mean, for those of us that get real death threats, that's laughable.
Yeah.
All right, Facebook, come on. But no, for me, what's not funny and what is very serious is the fact that they create straw men. I know. Did you say Hullett or Hewlett? Hullett. You know, this Hullett guy creates this big, long straw man. We were never concerned that kids are going to become Muslim from going to 7th grade social studies. In fact, I was never concerned that we're teaching Islam. I'm concerned that we are teaching a bought and paid for indoctrinating version of it from the enemy, number one. Number two, inaccurate and incomplete. That's it. And any reasonable person would. If you're going to teach Muhammad, teach his entire life. If you're going to teach pillars of faith, teach jihad. You know, millions and millions of people haven't just disappeared in the rapture. They've been slaughtered, and they're being slaughtered daily in the news. And so, you know, jamokes like this that try to create straw men and straw arguments, it's all a part of just distracting, dividing, and what they would love more than anything, this is my take, Julie, is to just get everybody to go, oh, I think they're all crazy. Julie West is crazy, DelGiorno's crazy, Curly's crazy, those people are crazy. No! You know, we still have not had a meaningful discussion that is far from crazy and very real, and most of the people get. So, to me, it's just a shameless tactic. If the voters can't see that and vote them out of office, then Williamson County is not strong and it's got much bigger problems. And I know you have it on your list, but I don't even know who that guy is at Will. Will Rising or what. I couldn't care less. I mean, I don't, none of that is relevant, but. He just took something out of context. I said, it's one of my analogies. I said, if you're going to teach Islam, make sure you teach slavery. Make sure you teach rape. Make sure you teach jihad and so on and so forth. And so he puts a big banner on his, what do you have, a whopping 300 people following?
Oh, something like that.
DelGiorno said teach rape, And then his point was that, and then people were saying, well, that's not what he said. You're misquoting him. They said, well, that's what they're doing to the Hullet guy. They're misquoting him. So, I mean, those are just silly games. I can't believe these people are real players and attorneys and, but I mean, this is childish stuff. I won't get involved.
Right. And I think the other thing, going back to some of the claims that came from Hullet, a sitting member of the school board, was the idea that he's not ever heard anyone complain about it. Well, as he's pointing to different Facebook posts based on what's been there from former coworkers, he absolutely has. And by the way, I could introduce you to and not that the conversion is the huge concern. It's the shift in what we're teaching. But I've spoken to two parents of special needs children whose child lacks the requisite ability to discern between truth and untruth. And when they sit through those lessons and then come home, they're coming home saying, well, why didn't you tell me
I got 20 seconds, so I interrupt you. We just awkwardly end. The bottom line is I don't have any trust in government schools, and the shots are being bought or called from Washington, D.C. So until the American people remove the federal government and return to 1979 and get them out of the education business or stop taking their money and all the chaos that comes with it, we're going to deal in a sea of symptoms and drown. Where are we at in getting this teachings of Islam accurate? Well, we'll wait and see from a governor who's really double-crossing us behind the scenes and a Republican-controlled legislature that's done very little so far, but we'll see. They can follow this and more on your Facebook page
at Parents for Truth, or if they want to email me, they can do it at parents4truth at Yahoo, or on Twitter at Julie4Truth. But be sure your local school board members know, quit taking the money that comes with the Obama mandate.
And in the meantime, take a little bit of your money and put it aside for private school. I love you, dear. We'll talk to you next week or sooner if conditions warrant. Kathy Headers from Daily Roll Call.